Okay, sorry, it's the first time I've done that. And I'm going to mute everybody, and I'm going to turn it over to Nancy, who is going to walk us through group guided discovery and everything we need to know about it. So take it away, Nancy.
Thank you, Mary Jo. I greatly appreciate that. I am coming to you from sunny Florida, and don't be jealous because it is disgustingly humid where I am right now. So I don't know. I think I might want that cool, crisp weather instead of this hot, humid weather right now, which we've had basically since about April. So we're ready for a break. Well, welcome everybody, and thank you to listening in today. We're going to be talking about guided group discovery, paving the way for employment for youth, and specifically talking about youth with disabilities. A journey in self-employment for job seekers, self-exploration for job seekers ready to take more control of their employment search. So before we get into that, I want to tell you a little bit about us. So I work for a nonprofit called National Disability Institute. We're based out of DC, although about 2/3 of us work from home throughout the United States, including a person that we have based in Oregon, north of Portland. So National Disability Institute runs the LEAD Center, which is the National Center on Leadership for Employment and Economic Advancement of People with Disabilities. And that's a collaborative of disability, workforce, economic empowerment organizations, education, etc. And our mission is to advance sustainable individual and system levels change that result in improved competitive employment and economic self-sufficiency outcomes for individuals with disabilities. And when we talk about individuals with disabilities, we're talking about the spectrum of disability. So any type of disability fits into the category that we work with. You have already heard about me, so I'm just going to move on to our agenda. So what we're going to talk a little bit about today is, other than the basics of guided group discovery, kind of some of the rationale for guided group discovery and why it works for certain populations. We're going to do an overview of the guided group discovery process, as well as talk a little bit about the materials, and then the role of the facilitators and the partnerships that can be made in working with youth on the discovery process.
Nancy?
So, yes.
I have a question. Do you want people to be able to unmute themselves and ask a question, or would you write when it's happening, or would you rather have them write it into the chat room piece down at the bottom of the page? People can see that and type that in, and then every so often, if we see a question, we'll ask it.
Yeah, I think that would be great. And Mary Jo, if you wouldn't mind letting me know when there's a few questions, and I don't have the chat up on my screen.
Okay. Yeah, we can monitor that for you and then just come in. Those that are on the phone, that's a problem that they can't chat, but hold your question maybe till the end if you're on the phone and can't do the chat. That sound good?
And I'll try to remember to pause occasionally and see if there's any questions as well. Alrighty, so what we hope that you're going to learn today in a very brief half hour or so is learn about guided group discovery and explore some approaches to support customized employment outcomes. And we're going to talk a little bit more about customized employment as well. Learn who can benefit from guided group discovery, because it's not for everyone. And then also explore some options for cross-system collaboration, which is really how the process works its best. So, rationale for guided group discovery. What is it? So for us, guided group discovery is the first step in customized employment. And the next slide will talk a little bit more about customized employment and how it fits into WIOA. But when we talk about discovery...
Can everybody see the PowerPoint?
Sorry, I thought I heard a question. So when we talk about discovery, we're talking about finding out who a person is right now. Meaning, right now in this time in school, what are your interests? What are your preferences? What are the skills and contributions that you offer? What conditions you might have of employment that'll help you to be successful? And then use all of that information that we gather in the discovery process to match a job seeker to an employer's needs.
Nancy?
Yes.
I want to ask, can everybody see the slideshow, the PowerPoint in front of them?
Yes.
Except Pia. Pia, if you can see it, we don't want you to.
Oh, okay.
So, are we getting some yeses in the...
Yeah, it's on slide 0.
Somebody saying it's on slide 0?
Yes.
Okay, hand me your book. I can do two
All right.
things at once.
So let me, I'm going
to have to listen to.
stop the video for 1 second.
Book.
Mary Jo, are you also seeing the wrong video? Are you not seeing the slides?
Wow.
I am seeing the slide. What is discovery?
Okay, so slide 7. So are we, I think now we should all be on the same page, but if we want to check with people and make sure.
On slide 7 says it. Caught up. Yes. Perfect.
Okay.
Thank you. Sorry.
That's okay. Thanks for letting me know. All right, let me go back to my mouse, which is doing weird things with my laptop open. So what is discovery? All right, sorry, we just finished that. So we're going to move on to slide 8, definition of customized employment in WIOA. So it's important to know that there is a definition as of 2014 of customized employment, which is competitive integrated employment for individuals with significant disabilities. And it is based on an individualized determination of a person's strengths, needs, interests of that person with a significant disability. It's designed to meet the specific needs of the individual with a significant disability, as well as the business needs of the employer. And it's carried out through flexible strategies. So when we talk about flexible strategies, we're talking about things like job exploration by the individual, as well as working with the employer to facilitate placement. And that's including customizing a job based on the employer's needs, hopefully maybe previous unmet needs, as well as developing a set of job duties, a work schedule, a job arrangement, and maybe specifics of supervision, including performance evaluation, review, things like that. And flexibility also means determining a job location. I know several of you on the webinar are in rural areas, so transportation is key. If we find a job for somebody but they can't get there, then that probably isn't going to be the most successful experience. And what we mean by flexibility too is looking at the person and are they going to be able to self-represent? So are we looking at somebody with a disability who can go out on their own and, help facilitate their own job seeking process? Or do we need to have some level of assistance to make that happen? And if that's the case, then we look at what supports are needed both to obtain that job as well as what supports are needed once the person is on that job. So when we talk about customized employment, we're getting away from traditional job development strategies. What we've come to realize is most individuals with a disability, through a vocational assessment, may be determined as unemployable. And the more significant the disability, the more involved the disability, the more we may see that. So customized employment circumvents that traditional approach and kind of takes a little bit of a different route. So as we said, traditional job, standardized vocational evaluations, they do prepare people for resumes and other such things, but that might not always work for people with disabilities. And responding to job posts on Craigslist or filling out applications, again, might not necessarily be the best thing for folks that we're working with disabilities. So what we do with a customized approach is kind of get away from that comparative process by focusing on how a person's skills meet an identified need of an employer. And that could be a need that the employer has that is an unmet need currently, or it could be something that during the discovery process, we work with an employer and help them identify some unmet needs that they have that they may not have been aware about. And that's where we really can customize a job for someone so that it works both for the job seeker as well as the employer. So when we're talking about customized employment, we want to make the assumption that employers are always hiring. And they really are, as long as they're getting a quality employee. And if we call an employer and say, hey, I've got this guy with a disability who, is looking for such and such a job, what are we going to hear? Oh, we're not hiring right now. So customized employment gets away from that traditional process. And the assessment process that we use is known as discovery, and it seeks to identify a youth's interest, strengths, the ideal conditions for employment, and it also relies on the use of informational interviews. So maybe we assist a youth with going onto not an interview, but an informational interview. So even if somebody isn't hiring, it's just a chance for that youth to go onto a job site and ask the employer some questions, find out more about what they might be interested in. So it kind of takes the employee out of the comparative process. So we're not comparing the youth with a disability to somebody else, because typically when that happens, the person with a disability in the comparison doesn't come out on top and winds up not being hired. So going a little bit more into customized employment, it's really not specific to disability. I would think that everybody on the line right now could say that somehow their job is customized or has been customized to meet their needs. And that could be something like maybe, being able to get out of work at a certain time to go pick up children from school. We all typically customize our jobs, and hopefully if we work for really good employers, they'll assist us with that because they want us to shine in certain areas where we do shine, and they don't want us to spend too much time on things that we don't particularly do well. So there's a wide range of employers and job seekers all over are really using this approach to fit in more with customized options on various job sites. So a little overview of guided group discovery and kind of what the process is. So discovery simply means gathering information. But what we do is we gather the information from the person in a specific way. So it's not gathering information from files. It's not pulling out some of the negative qualities of someone, which is typically how we kind of get funded. If we're working with somebody with a disability and we show that that person doesn't need any supports, then why are we doing what we're doing? So we look at gathering information, and then from that information, we develop what is called an employment blueprint. So it's a summary of what we've learned in discovery, and everything that we're learning in discovery, we try to relate to employment. So, and what I mean by that, and we'll talk about it a little bit when we go into modules, is maybe somebody likes tattoos. Well, we wouldn't think of that as somebody going to get a job as a tattoo artist, per se, but what does liking tattoos mean? Does it mean that the person likes pictures? Does it mean that the person likes art? Does it mean that the person likes colors? And we try to look at those types of information that we gather and develop that into forms of ways that somebody could turn that into an interest in employment. So then customized employment is meeting, I'm sorry, I lost my spot there, is a planning meeting and the development of the plan to secure employment. So as we go along, something that the facilitator is always doing, something that the teacher or workforce or Voc Rehab is always trying to do is keep people on track that what we're trying to do here when we're gathering employment is to develop a plan to secure employment and what next steps might be needed for that to happen. So that's where I talked about before the use of informational interviews. That's a great way for to kind of discover more about an employer. And I was working with somebody several years ago, and she wanted a job at a laundromat. And the reason she wanted that job at a laundromat is, she was an adult. She lived at a group home with other individuals, and she loved doing people's laundry. So when we started talking with her about what type of job she wanted, she said, well, maybe a laundromat. I love doing people's laundry. And we said, okay, great. Let's set up an informational interview. And I don't think we were there more than 20 minutes. And she just looked at me and shook her head and went, no. I don't want to be here. I don't want to do this. Okay, no problem. Thank you, Mr. Employer. This was great. Hopefully we can bring somebody else back, another time and have them look and do the same type of thing. But in the discovery process, after the fact, what we learned was the one thing this person didn't like was temperatures and it being really warm and being loud. And that's what laundromats are like, is, they're loud, they're exceptionally warm, and that didn't work for her. And we actually wound up finding a more successful option for her in an office. So it worked out well. Had we have done discovery beforehand, we may have learned, had we gone in a little bit deeper, I should say, we may have learned that she didn't like the heat and that she didn't like the loud noises. And the reason she liked doing laundry was because she got to sit on the couch with the basket of laundry and do some folding while she was watching TV. So completely different from being in a laundromat.
Nancy?
Yes.
We have a question from Patty, and is this a process that YTP will be doing with IDD?
So I'm stumbling over my words. I want to say yes. However, I'm not the person to answer that question. Keep in mind that discovery is it's geared towards folks with the most significant disabilities. And when I think of folks with the most significant disabilities, I do think of individuals with intellectual and developmental disabilities. But basically, you're going to be doing this, and we'll go over it in a few slides, with people who are going to benefit, with people who are interested. So you may or may not be doing it with folks with IDD. It depends.
Okay, thanks. I think, yeah. And I think too, it's, there's bits and pieces that I'm seeing through this and what I'm learning that you could use with that high functioning student with autism. You could use with, a student who struggles with math. There's different things that you could pull out from this too. So where it could be used with all of the students that we work with.
It could, and that was really good timing, because I'll show you as we go on to the next slide. There are different formats for discovery. So there's something that we call facilitated discovery. And that's basically where a professional, somebody who's been trained in discovery, works with an individual one-on-one. That's not what we're talking about here. We also have self-discovery, and that's where an individual can basically take the discovery tools and run with them. So we have some pilots that we're doing self-discovery right now with for veterans, who are a much different category than individuals with intellectual and developmental disabilities. Group discovery is just that. It's done in a group. And then guided group discovery is done in a group, but there's a lead. And again, that lead could be the YTP folks. It could be in combination with some VR folks, as well as maybe some workforce individuals. And not everybody is a candidate for guided group discovery. So let's talk about that a little bit, because I don't want people to get hung up on this isn't going to work for the kids in my classroom, or this would be good for maybe another teacher's classroom, but maybe look more at just in general how it can benefit folks. So the purpose about, the point about group, it's adapted from some work by Mark Gold and Associates, as well as Griffin Hammis and Transcend. And it's been around for a long time. I want to say like 1974 is when Mark Gold started talking about discovery. And it was exactly for folks with intellectual and developmental disabilities. What it involves is self-reflection. So that's one thing that we look at when we're putting a group of folks together, whether it be youth or adults, is does that person have the capability to kind of work with a group and self-reflect on some of their skills and abilities and see how those can be relatable to an employer? What it also does, being in the group environment, is it offers the opportunity to learn and receive feedback from others. And again, it's potentially for everyone, but it's not for everyone. So if somebody has social anxiety and doesn't work well in a group, then that probably wouldn't be a good candidate for guided group discovery. And you'll see as we talk a little bit about the exercises and assignments, if a person can't complete those exercises and assignments, even with a certain amount of support, then they might not be a candidate for group discovery either. So I hope that helps a little bit. The person has to enjoy working with others. Again, that's part of the whole group process. The person needs to have at least one or more barriers to employment, needs to have specific conditions of employment that need to be addressed. So that could be a change in schedule. Could be maybe somebody's on medication and they can't get to work on time. It could be that hours need to be adjusted so that it follows a certain bus route. Or it could be environmental things as well, such as not being near loud noises, or maybe for somebody who has seizures, not being in a place where there's flashing lights that could trigger a seizure. So just conditions that need to be addressed. And again, I'm a firm believer that conditions are not just for folks with disabilities, but for all of us. Guided group discovery is also good for individuals who have been unsuccessful with traditional approaches or are deemed unsuccessful in their job efforts. And then it's also for youth and adults who can stay focused. And that is, again, with or without support, but there are classroom activities, there are exercises, and there are homework assignments that somebody needs to be able to complete. So we have used discovery in schools, we've used it in American job centers, and also in vocational rehabilitation. It's useful for initial assessment of skills. It helps identify the supports that are needed and the partners that we need to bring in. So we all know that when kids graduate high school, if they're not linked up to whatever services they may need at the time that they're exiting high school, it's going to be a lot harder for them to eventually get those services somewhere down the line. Again, it creates that blueprint for employment and leads to successful outcomes. And I'm going to move it along a little bit because I think I'm already a little bit behind schedule. So
Nancy, I have a question. This might go into it, but maybe as you can be thinking, I just want to put this bug in your ear and everybody else. There was a question here. Let's see. Because I think it's good for everybody. This is a great idea. How do I get teachers to buy in while their schedules are set for the school year?
yeah.
Now, or should I wait till next year for teachers to include this into the curriculum? Lisa responds back and said, I would try to talk to teachers now about sharing and starting and seeing if time can be carved out of a class, even once a week for 10 weeks. You can talk to them about the training that will be in February and then starting after that. So I guess I can see where you're going with it now, and just to get people's heads kind of thinking, how could I put this together in my classroom or get it introduced to my teachers?
Yeah, absolutely. So the fact that people are already, thinking about, and their minds are going about how can I make this work is absolutely fantastic. And Lisa's right. What we're doing now and what Keith is going to talk to you about after I'm done with the slide presentation is kind of how we're going to bring this together, how we're going to pull these teams together, and then how we're going to get trained. So, and I'll talk a little bit more about how we can break down the lessons as well as we continue. So, great questions. So, for the PowerPoint afterwards, you can access all of the things that we're talking about online on the Lead Center's website. What everybody in the training will receive is a comprehensive PowerPoint that they can use, a participant workbook. We have that in paper format right now, and we're also developing an electronic version. And then the facilitator manual, which has the workbook. It also has tools for facilitators, and it has a discussion of ideas and facilitator tips. So, so that nobody has to go into this, blind by any stretch. So I think I skipped the lessons, but we're actually going to go into each lesson. So materials, the way they're arranged right now, is for 5 weekly sessions that last roughly 1.5 to 2 hours. Now, everybody who does discovery kind of adapts it for whatever their needs are. So for a classroom schedule, and not knowing y'all's specific classroom schedule, and I never said y'all till I moved to Florida, but what you could do it with school groups is maybe 50-minute sessions. And you could do that once a week, or you could possibly even do it twice a week, so that it would go a little bit faster. And then one of the other things that teachers can think about is co-teaching, and maybe having a couple different, maybe you don't have a group of 7, 8, 10 kids in one class, but between 2 classes you do, and you could kind of trade off and do a little co-teaching. So that's an option as well. There are 5 lessons. They're all set up the same in that they have an overview. We review the assignments from the previous session. Each has specific content and activities go with that. And then there's a summary and a review. And again, they can be adapted in length to meet the needs of your classroom as well as the students. So lesson 1 is, and I'll go through these quickly, you get to know one another, you discuss different ways to approach a job search, because there's so many different ways to approach a job search other than just looking online for job openings. We present the concept of discovery and the blueprint for employment, and we identify a youth's personal employment network. So part of what we do is talk to kids about, well, where does your mom work? Where does your dad work? Where does your brother work? Do you go to church with any people? Different types of things like that, so they can start building their network. Most of us find jobs not by cold calling, but through a network of people that we know. So we like to expand that so that it works similarly for folks, youth and adults with disabilities. So lesson 2, we start identifying interests, right? The kids are now hopefully comfortable with one another, and they'll start talking about some skills that they think that they're good at, or some tasks that they do, whether it be at school or at home or in the community that they feel they do well. And we really push the emphasis of focusing on positive personality traits, because what we find with people with disabilities, and I think of youth with or without disabilities, is they just start talking about negative things. They do that on a job interview, they do that with employers, they do it with one another. So we really talk about the importance of focusing on positive traits. And then we start identifying some vocational themes, and we can, you guys will learn more about that, the vocational themes, in February. And then one of the assignments that we do is we start identifying businesses in the community that might match my theme. So again, going back to the art or the tattoo example, no, I'm not going to be a tattoo artist, but what things about art or color or artistic types of things are in my community? And then do I know anybody who happens to do anything within those communities? Lesson 3, we talk about those conditions for employment that we talked about earlier, as well as any job accommodations. And we talk to the kids about disclosure, and am I going to disclose my disability or not? If I do disclose my disability, is the employer not going to hire me? If I don't disclose the disability, but then I disclose later on, does that mean that the employer doesn't have to accommodate me. So, some pretty heavy stuff, but we do lots of exercises with the kids, true, false, so that they understand the importance of to disclose or not to disclose their disability and what that's all about. So then going on to lesson 4, we talk about the importance of personal contacts, like we talked about earlier, mapping out your own network. So any friends, family members, helpers, who may be able to assist you along the way, developing a networking pitch, and then fine-tuning that networking pitch. So, one of the things we realize with a lot of youth, and I would say certainly youth with disabilities, is they have no idea how to introduce themselves to folks. So we go over just the basics in terms of smile. Drop a name if you know somebody who works in the industry. Be able to talk about the type of work you're interested in doing. Be able to talk about your abilities or positive personality traits. Give examples to the employer of some things that you're good at. Highlighting successes. So we talk about all those different kinds of things. So we expand a little bit on, I think, what most people would call general soft skills, and turn that more into the elevator pitch that we can use to make sure that we're telling an employer what they want to hear, and we're meeting that employer where they want us to meet them. So that's always fun. And then lesson 5, we do a lot of practicing of the networking pitch, because as we all know, practicing it one time doesn't necessarily make it stick. We review all the previous lessons. We do the updated blueprint so that somebody can actually have it in hand and then say, okay, these are the action steps that I need to take in order to look at this blueprint and see how I can then use that blueprint to start looking for a job. And we look at some action steps, such as, does a person need to enroll in other services? Are they getting funding from VR? Are they getting funding from IDD or another service? How often should they meet with their team to kind of review how things are going? Should we schedule some more informational interviews? Is the person linked up with an employment specialist? Or a VR counselor. So we look at all those things as well. So I don't want the YTP folks to think that this all falls on you. One of the things that we're really doing is trying to create cross-system collaboration with this project. And that's why we're not only meeting with YTP folks, but we've also got VR involved. And we're going to be getting your local American Job Centers, formerly called one-stops. We're getting them involved as well. So it's more of a group effort than just lying for one person to do on their own. So real quickly, the role of the facilitators. So some planning and setup, planning, meeting, getting the whatever's needed ready for the exercises and the activities. Recruiting students who would work well for this. We went over a little bit of that before. I think one of the things that's not on the slides but should be pretty obvious is the person should be interested in finding out more about themselves. Not necessarily interested in a job, but just interested in finding out more about themselves. That really works well, those folks in the discovery process. Going through the materials, helping participants to understand the information that they're learning and how that translates into employment possibilities, providing support, ensuring that different activities are completed. And then what we also do is, and we think about this up front, who are the possible partners? You all know the students better than probably many other people in their lives. So we start identifying what other supports are they going to need? What other agency partners should we start getting involved? And then once the discovery process is over, who takes the lead? Is it going to be the student, or is it going to be a service provider, or is it going to be a family member? How are the services coordinated, and how should they be coordinated? And then how might the funding and resources be braided so that we can leverage the funding as much as possible? So that's kind of the after the discovery piece, but it's things that we need to start developing and looking at as we're doing discovery for folks. So that is discovery in, I don't know, 40 minutes maybe? Sorry, Keith, I went a little bit over.
I've got a couple questions here, and maybe Keith can chime in on it and talk about it, but one person put in, and I think it's great, there are other curriculums out there. She says junior achievement in 7 weeks is 7 weeks and addresses soft skills, work ethic, taught by a community business person. Curriculum is free. Junior Achievement's been doing stuff like this for a long time, and they are a great resource. If you have it in your community, it's a great place to go. The other question, Nancy and Keith, is how and where can I go to get trained for this and get this curriculum?
Well, I feel like all these questions so far, I feel like I've paid people to ask them because they're kind of leading into what we're covering next. So,
and then is there an example of a blueprint on leadcenter.org?
Oh, great. You know, that's a great question. There is an example, it's blank, but there is an example of what the blueprint looks like. I can actually, let me see if I can get one that's filled out to show you all as an example. I don't think it's on the Lead Center's website, but we can probably get one to Keith and he can share it with all of you. Because we're working with youth, sometimes we're a little leery about doing that, because then if it gets into the youth's hands, they'll maybe change one or two things on it, but otherwise they'll be like, yeah, I'm motivated too. That's one of my skills. And they kind of skip the whole discovery piece of the process. And then I am not all that familiar with junior achievement, but I do want to say that everything that we're doing here is free. So there is no charge similar to junior achievement, just so nobody thinks that the school's got to pay for any of these resources or training. And having said that, Keith, I think I'll turn it over to you in terms of talking more about how the process is going to flow and go.
Uh-oh.
Maybe he needs to be unmuted.
Yeah.
Or *6, Keith, if you're on the phone.
There he is.
Or *8.
There you go, Keith. You're unmuted.
Okay, can you guys hear me?
Yes.
All right, thank you, Nancy. Yeah, so basically we are in the process of asking sites that would be interested in receiving this training to raise their hand or to just notify me and say, yes, I want to participate in this. But we're asking a little bit more than that. What we're asking is that you have consulted with a teacher in your school who will be able to do that carve out of making room in the class schedule for either 10 different classes or whatever it works out to be, but there's basically 10 hours of instruction that needs to happen. And just to let you know that on the YTP website, when you went to go find out more information about this community of practice, down at the bottom there are 2 documents that you can download, print out, and then actually go and take to a teacher to explain what is group-guided discovery, what are the benefits to the school, what are the benefits to the students, and what's going to help them, what's going to be the result in terms of being able to go on to adult agencies. There's also another document, which is an FAQ, which is pretty good to have if you start telling about the benefits. It's also some questions come up. So I think those two documents will help you go recruit teachers that might be able to carve out the time in your classroom, in their classroom, I should say. And then we want to receive an email, and we're not asking for much right now. We're asking for an email that you send to me before December 13th and describe which, well, you need to tell us who you are, what school district, and which teacher you would bring into this training with you. And the ideal goal is that by doing that, then you would be able to come to a training on February 28th. This is the day right before the statewide transition conference, where we're going to do a whole day training on what Nancy described. So going through those 5 big, those units, and training you how to do that. And we're going to be choosing 6 sites, and those 6 sites will receive intensive TA from the Lead Center and from Janet and other folks with the Lead Center going on essentially over the next, doing the training. So going through the first full training of the 10 different hours of lessons. So really, again, what we're asking is that if you can recruit a team that can be part of this training, that are saying, yes, we want to do this, send me an email by December 13th so we can discuss it. We're going to be getting together as a team to discuss which sites will be chosen to move forward, and we will invite you to the training that will be on the 28th. Now, even if you are not chosen to be part of that intensive TA group, all of the TNFs around the state have already been trained in guided group discovery, so we are going to be able to hook you up with TNFs who will be able to support you regardless. So even if you just want to get the curriculum and start learning more about this and get the support of your local your local TNFs, then we can do that. And we will definitely make sure we get those connections for all interested districts and schools.
I'm going to unmute everybody, and if you have questions, one of the things is, where again do I find the paperwork to show my teachers? Christian, that is on the YTP website. And if you look at today's information, and Keith, and I've got the PowerPoint, and I'll have Liza put the PowerPoint on if that's okay also. And then just letting everybody know, it says Keith's email. We'll put that there and how you get signed up for this opportunity.
So on the YTP website, is that listed under Discovery?
No, it's in the community of practice.
Okay.
Yeah. Can you describe who makes up the team, Keith? Makes up a team.
Yes. Yeah, makes up a team. So ideally what we're going to have is we're going to have a teacher in the classroom. We're going to have a...
I started going there in 90.
Sorry, somebody started talking.
I've been with my dentist that long. Him and I both watched grow up, basically.
Yeah, I was with the same dentist.
I think you might need to...
Mary Jo, is it possible to mute folks, or...
Yeah,
We will.
sorry.
Okay, you're all muted again, and we need to unmute Keith. Go ahead, Keith.
Okay, so a team, an ideal team, will be comprised of 4 people at least. So ideally what it is a transition specialist, a YTP transition specialist, a teacher in the school, a vocational representative from VR, so a VR counselor, and then also somebody from the workforce side of things, so from the American Job Center or WorkSource Oregon. Now, with the VR representative and the WorkSource Oregon representative, that's something that I will take responsibility for in terms of reaching out to them and developing those relationships, if you don't have them. If you do have those relationships, then by all means, that's great. More power to you, and having that's a great start. But if you don't, I can help make those relationships and those connections. So don't feel like that's a reason not to request participation in this training.
Any other questions at all? I'm going to unmute you so that you can ask these questions specifically. So I'm going to unmute everybody. So pay attention to noises that you have going on in your room and things. So here you go.
Yeah, they don't do that. Well, you know,
Not that way, but.
I haven't had Xanax because we don't do it.
Oh, boy.
And
Whoa. Okay, that was a bad idea. I don't think everybody
Mary
heard that I
Jo?
said I'm going to unmute everybody.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
If you mute everybody, then we can choose to unmute ourselves manually.
Yeah. Okay. Does
I have a
anybody have any questions out there? You can manually unmute yourself.
Michelle does. Go.
Go, Michelle.
I do. I'm wondering if, because I've got a pretty good team, but we're not all able to make it to the state transition conference. 2 or 3 of the 4 of us would be able to come. Would we still be able to possibly be considered as one of those teams that gets intensive support? If we all can't go to the Oregon State Transition Conference, just a few?
Yeah, Michelle, can you hear me? This is Keith again.
I sure can.
Awesome. How are you doing, Michelle? So the answer is yes. By all means, ideally we want to have at least the transition specialist and the teacher there, because it will probably be those 2 individuals that will be delivering most of the lessons. And when I say that, because it's probably going to happen at the school site. So we would like to have that partnership, the people who are doing that. And the nice thing is that the Lead Center is also going to be doing a follow-up webinar that's going to be on the 2nd of March. And that primarily was set up so we could have our workforce partners, because we're not sure if they're going to be able to travel from around the state to come to Portland for the transition conference. So we're going to do an online, like a webinar, where we're going to have it available to individuals to come in via Skype or via Zoom and get an online training on that Friday, which is the 2nd. So that's another opportunity for folks that maybe couldn't make it. They're still going to be able to have virtual training as an option.
You got a thumbs up, Keith.
Thank you. I was muted, sorry.
Oh, great.
So, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. So would Lisa, as the transition teacher, count as the head teacher, or do I need to pull in more from the regular resource room?
So you've got one transition teacher that would be able to carve out, you know, the time for the group guided discussion lessons. Then the transition specialist is participating. That should be enough. I think that we're not trying to expand it to be in multiple classrooms at multiple times. Really, we want to make sure that we, you know, we're starting slow. We're doing it right. We're getting the technical assistance to support that. So I think one and one is just fine.
Okay, because I believe at this time both Lisa Gilman and I are both attending that training.
Great.
Or the week after, the 28th, whatever day that is.
And Christian,
right.
you need to email Keith and let him know that you're interested.
Yeah, you got to email me before, and you have to be accepted. So there's going to be a screening process. So please email me the names of the people who would like to attend.
I will, and because I do have a connection with our VR counselor and WorkSource with Dee Hogan.
Great.
That's great.
Okay, and is your email being provided somewhere?
Yeah, it's in the documents that are on the Community of Practice website. It's listed on, I believe, both of them. So I will say it right now for people just to, if they want to write it down. It's keith.ozols@state.or.us.
Mary Jo, can you type it in the group chat for us?
Good idea.
Thank you.
Thanks, Lisa. You're fast.
Thank you.
We are just got about a minute to go, or actually it's 12:01. The clock in here is wrong. I want to really thank Nancy. That cleared up a lot of questions that I had, and really excited about it. So the bottom line is, if you are interested, and talk to your teacher. If and then email Keith, and then he will let you know. And December 13th, right, Keith?
Yeah, please email me by December 13th. We're hoping that we will be able to notify people by December 15th.
All right, and I'm going to, Nancy, if that's okay with you, I'm going to have our web person put the PowerPoint on our website.
Absolutely.
And Keith, if there's anything else that you want on there, if you can email that to Liza, she can get that on there also.
Will do.
Okay.
So are we just emailing that we're interested in participating, or is there anything else we need to send in that email?
If you could please email that you're interested in participating, and then the teacher or team that you would be bringing with you, that would be very helpful.
Okay, thank you.
And I want to remind everybody, this is like a pre-conference training. It is not part of the conference. It's just being held the day before so that it's easier for you. So your registration for this event and whatever you do will be done through Keith and Lisa. If you're going to go to the conference on Thursday and Friday, you still need to go to OregonSTC.org and sign up for the conference and pay the registration fee for that and all of it. So I just want to make sure that everybody's clear on that. This one won't cost you anything for lead guided group guided discovery, but the conference is a separate thing. All right. So unless there aren't any other questions for Nancy or anything else, remember you have your technical assistance providers. You can ask questions, and or Keith and Lisa, you can email them directly.
Thanks, Mary Jo.
All right. So I'm going to end the recording and leave the meeting.
In the recording.
All right. Thank you all very much.
Thanks, Nancy. Appreciate it.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Okay, bye.
Bye.